Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jen Monteleone, Interim Executive Director, the TLC Foundation for Body-Focused Repetitive Behaviors. I don't know about you, but I am so excited for this webinar, Stop, Drop, and De-Stress, in recognition of National Stress Awareness Month. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. This is a 60-minute health education webinar offered in a safe and welcoming environment for everyone attending today. This health education webinar will not include a Q&A today, but resources will be provided in the chat box throughout the duration of the event. The Stop, Drop, and De-Stress webinar will be led by Amanda Petrik-Gardner, licensed clinical professional counselor, licensed professional counselor, and licensed independent mental health practitioner who specializes in the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder and body-focused repetitive behaviors. Amanda has completed the Professional Training Institute through the TLC Foundation. She is also the creator of OCD exposure coloring books and serves on the board for OCD Kansas, an affiliate of the International OCD Foundation. Amanda currently provides teletherapy to the states of Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, Missouri, Michigan, Maine, and Florida. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful to have you with us today to share more about stress management and offer tangible strategies for BFRB community members and beyond. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jen. Like Jen mentioned, this is Stop, Drop, and De-Stress. I specialize in BFRBs and do teletherapy only. And since it is Stress Awareness Month, we are obviously talking about stress. And the reason why is because everyone experiences stress. However, as our BFRB community knows, there is a special unique stress that a lot of us feel, and it would be great to have some concrete tools that you can walk out of here with and to use. What's also interesting is that sometimes stress and anxiety, these things can exacerbate our BFRB, make it bigger, worse, more difficult, and then vice versa. Then that creates more stress when we're engaging in behavior. So that's why it is so needed and why we are focusing on that today. Also, and hopefully we have some loved ones here, somebody has a BFRB in their family, and so they're here maybe to learn some stress management skills. So everyone is welcome. Sit back, enjoy. I will give you my contact information at the very end in case people have questions or just want to reach out to me. So before we get started, it's really important to note that there is not just one technique that works for everybody. Maybe you've asked that question before. I know I've had clients ask that question before, like, what can I do? I'm experiencing stress. And I wish there was some magical fix or one thing I could tell everybody that would work across the board. But stress management skills are very unique to all of us. We have to almost experiment and test out what works well. So that's why we're going to give you a plethora of ideas today. I'm hoping that you're sitting there at home or at work going to actually be trying these with me as I'm going through the motions, so you can get a feel of what works best for you. So we're going to get started right away, actually practicing something, not only just to get us in the spirits for this session, for this webinar, but also as one simple idea of what we can do when we're a little stressed out. So I want everybody to get nice and comfortable, whether you're sitting in a chair, you're laying in a recliner in your bed, get as comfortable as you possibly can. If you feel comfortable and safe enough to do so, you can close your eyes, or you are more than welcome to keep your eyes open as well. But get comfortable, get in a position that feels good for you. And the first thing I want you to do is bring your attention to your body. Let's notice our body, any aches, any pains. It could be just a sensation, any feelings of warmth. Maybe it's a kind of scan through your body. Maybe you're experiencing a headache. Maybe there's a little pain in your side. Maybe you have an itch. Maybe you just notice your heart racing. Just kind of get in touch with your body, really noticing that. Okay, obviously there's other stuff going on around you. I'm sure you can hear some things, see some things, something's distracting you. I can hear my toddler running around upstairs. Acknowledge that that's happening. We never want to try to ignore or deny what's going on around us. Acknowledge, oh, this thought is popping up in my head, or, oh, I can hear this thing that's kind of annoying. Acknowledge it's there, and then bring your attention back to your body. Again, I like to think of it as like a scan going from head to toe. Think of like that MRI machine that's slowly going down. Or what do I notice in my head? Maybe my jaw is tight, coming on down. Oh yeah, my shoulders are a little bit sore, and keep going down all the way to your toes. Now, once you've kind of like acknowledged what's happening in your body, now we're going to reconnect kind of with our surroundings. So this means bringing attention to our body, but it might be wiggling those fingers, just getting it moving. It might be pushing those feet down on the floor. Again, we're just now making that connection between the body and what's going on around us. It might be pushing against that chair or touching something in front of you, touching that desk or a cup or your phone. So do something right there to almost connect yourself back to what's going on around you. Then we're going to connect back to what it is we're doing, whatever task is happening in this moment. Now, for the majority of you, it's probably staring at a screen, your computer, or your phone, watching this. So you're going to then bring your attention back to the task that's in front of you. For other people, it might be bringing their attention back to their pad of paper and their pen if they're taking some notes, or if they're fidgeting, like I usually have a little fidget near me, bringing their attention back to that task. So now that everyone's fully present, you have noticed your body, the environment, and what's happening in front of you. Let's keep going. These are the techniques that I'm going to be showing you today. There are a million different stress management techniques. So it's hard to like bring it down to just a few, but I brought on some of my favorites. So hopefully it will connect with a few. Start with grounding. Okay, grounding is a way to bring your attention back to the present moment. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced when we're feeling very overwhelmed. A lot of times our minds are maybe on something in the past that's happened, or maybe it's already stuck on something in the future that could happen. And our goal with these mindfulness techniques is to come back to this moment. What do I see, hear, feel, smell? So with that said, we're going to practice it. And I'm going to assume everybody is at home right now practicing it with me. I'm not just doing it alone. So my favorite grounding technique is just using our 5 senses. So again, if you want to close your eyes, you feel comfortable doing so, go ahead and do that now. Get nice and comfy in your seat or wherever you're laying down. If you want to keep them open and watching, feel free. We're going to pay attention to our 5 senses. So let's go through this. Let's start with a really easy one. I want you to notice something that you can feel or touch. Maybe it's, and I'm just going to use my own examples right now. For me, it's the pillow that's behind my back. Not only the cushiness of it, but it's soft and fuzzy, so I can feel that. Maybe it's the hard desk in front of me. Maybe you just heard me accidentally slam my hands on the desk. So bring your attention to just what can you feel? It might also be something like, oh, I can feel an air conditioner and the cool breeze coming down. So sense of touch then tends to be an easier one because we can really concretely feel something near us. Let's go to a little bit, still very easy. We're going to work ourselves up to the harder ones. Notice something. You'll have to open your eyes for a second. Notice something you can see. Just look around for a moment and scan your environment. What do you notice? Anything that you notice, maybe you haven't really noticed before. Maybe it's like, oh, there's kind of a crack in the ceiling, or, oh, there's that book I've been looking for. So just kind of look around your environment and notice a few things that you can see. Maybe it's something, like I said, you've never noticed before. Maybe it's something enjoyable, like you can see out the window and you're like, oh my gosh, there's that squirrel playing in the tree, and that just brings you a little smile. All right, let's go to some tougher ones. Your sense of smell. Take a second, and I find this to be easier closing my eyes, but do whatever is comfortable for you. What can you smell? Maybe you have a candle, or maybe you can smell your perfume, or for me, I just put on a lavender lotion, so that's what I can smell. Maybe you have a Scentsy, or maybe you have a cup of coffee near you. So take a second and notice, what do you smell? Okay, now let's go to our sense of hearing. What do you hear? Well, as I already mentioned, I can hear some kids screaming upstairs. I have a fridge in here, so I can hear my refrigerator running. So acknowledge any sounds that are occurring. And ready? For me, what tends to be the toughest one is sense of taste, because unless you're like actively eating something right now, this might be a little tougher. So what do you taste? Maybe for me, honestly, I've just been having some water. So maybe it's still the taste of water if water has a taste. Maybe you were chewing gum or had a mint and you can taste that if you had any food. So we're going to go through all of those senses. And again, the whole goal is to bring our awareness back to this moment, which greatly reduces stress. It can improve your mood. It doesn't mean you're going to do this activity and then just magically feel better. It just means like, hey, I'm at least maintaining my mood, if not maybe even improving it. And this kind of grounding technique is also really great for sleep. I probably do this the most at bedtime. I don't know about you, but I get the most stressed right before bed when when I'm lying in bed trying to fall asleep, because with the lack of sensations that's happening, it's dark and it's quiet. That's when all my thoughts tend to consume me. So this is when I practice those 5 senses, noticing what I feel like in my bed and my pillow. What do I hear? So that's when I like to use it. Hopefully some of you are just practicing that, and maybe a few of you connected with it and want to try that. So I've already been talking about mindfulness, because grounding is one idea of how to be mindful, but we're going to do another mindful activity. So one of my other favorite ways to practice mindfulness is picking a task I already do every day, because probably like a lot of you, we're very busy and it's hard to fit in extra time for homework and techniques. So I pick something I'm already going to do that day, whether it's the laundry or I'm taking a walk or I'm going to take a nap, try to fall asleep. So I pick a task that I'm already going to do, and I try to purposely do it mindfully, meaning, okay, I am going to put my energy and attention into that task. Whereas a lot of times if I'm doing laundry, I'm trying to think about everything else. I'm thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner later, or this work project I have to do. And so I decide I'm going to do laundry mindfully today. This doesn't mean you're going to love it, but what it means is while I'm doing laundry, I'm just going to really notice the laundry. And I know I probably sound crazy right now because you're like, wow, you're putting a lot of time and attention into laundry. And I do. And I've practiced it so much that now I look forward to that time. I look forward to laundry because in that moment, I'm noticing the fabrics and the piles and the folds and the creases and the smells. Again, I probably sound insane talking about how much I enjoy laundry, but it's only because I've chosen that's one task every few days that I am just going to fully immerse myself in and do just as mindful as I can. This does not mean that other thoughts and stress are not going to pop up. They absolutely do. So when I get that nagging, stressful thought of, oh my gosh, like you need to get this project done for your kiddo for school tomorrow, I can acknowledge that thought is there. Like, okay, that's what's popping up in my head right now. I can handle that later, but right now I am just trying to fold these shorts. So when you're practicing this task and just kind of maybe using some of those grounding techniques during it, just noticing the sights and the smells and the textures, be aware of anything else that's popping up. Almost kind of say hi to it, like, hi, I see you there, welcome. But right now I'm doing the dishes. So now again, most of you probably aren't, maybe some of you are doing laundry or dishes or something right now. Most of you are probably sitting in the chair. So for the remainder of the session, see how mindful you can be while you're watching this webinar, meaning, you're going to notice what you see on the screen and the colors and the words. Notice what you're hearing. Obviously, my voice. Just fully put yourself in this moment and what's around you. I can feel the desk. And when something tries to pull you out of this moment, here you're trying to watch this webinar, but if this nagging, stressful thought tries to pull you out, I almost want you to acknowledge, like, okay, nagging thought, I hear you. I know you're trying to bother me. Welcome, stay as long as you want. But right now I am watching this presentation. So I challenge everybody. I think everybody should incorporate this kind of technique into their lifestyle, but I challenge you maybe tomorrow, it might be getting late for some of you around the world, but tomorrow pick one task. Like I said, it could be just even walking up the stairs, something that small and silly. I'm going to walk up the stairs mindfully, meaning instead of just like jogging up the stairs, thinking about something else, you're going to be like, I'm going to walk up these stairs and notice each step and my foot sinking into the carpet or the hard wood on my shoe. Again, probably sounds insane, but notice what that does for your stress and your mood when you can just notice what's happening right now. Because most of the time what's happening in this moment is fine, is maybe even good or pleasant, right? So before we move on to my next technique of thought diffusion, I'm going to go through almost a metaphor for thought diffusion or example of how to do it. So again, get comfortable. I say that a lot, but I want you to be comfortable. If you're having to listen to me for an hour, I want you to take your hand. Okay, I'm going to hope there's a whole world of you out there that's literally raising your hand right now. Put it right in front of your face. I'm serious. Hold it right here. I'm going to hold it right here. You have this hand right in front of your face. I want you to notice, what do you see? Well, I notice my hand. It's like right in my face. It's kind of a little bit blurry because it's so close. Like I can still see my computer screen, the purple presentation, but it's like I notice this hand. Okay, also think about like how hard or easy or difficult is it to like do other things with this hand in front of your face? How hard would it be to have a conversation with somebody with this hand in front of your face? That'd be pretty hard. It's even kind of hard presenting right now with this hand in my front of my face. How hard would it be to type an email with this in front of my face? It's like you can see the other stuff, but it's kind of consuming. All right. Now, our goal with thought diffusion, take this hand and I want you to pull it away. Okay. I'm not asking you to drop it yet. You're not putting that hand away. You're saying, okay, that hand is still there, but I'm going to create some distance from it. I'm going to move it a little bit further. Okay. Now what do you see? Okay, I can see the presentation just fine now. That hand is still there, but it's not like blocking everything. Okay, how hard would it be to live life or do tasks with this hand over here? Oh, well, it's kind of annoying, but it's like, yeah, I could have a conversation just fine with this hand there. I could type an email okay with this there, right? I could listen to my voicemails just fine. So this, I'll let you drop your hand now because your arm might be getting tired. This is our goal with thought diffusion. Imagine that this hand were your stressful thoughts, that thing that has been bothering you all day or all week or all month. Imagine that that is your hand. And sometimes that stress just latches on and consumes us. It's all we can see. It's all we can hear. It's all we can think about. And it keeps us from living our life how we want to live it. We can't necessarily, I know we can't stop thoughts. Trust me, the more you try, the harder it is. We can't stop thoughts. We can't even always take away stress. Sometimes things happen that are just stressful. That's why we're not like making the hand go away. We're saying, okay, I'm going to allow this hand to be there, but I'm going to create some space from it. I'm going to say, hey, this is here. I see you. I hear you. I know what you're about to say. Be present, be here, but I am going to continue on with the things I want to do in life. So hopefully that metaphor kind of makes sense. Again, this isn't so much about our hand. It's about like whatever is stressing you out right now. And we're going to pull it away and allow you to live your life how you want to with that hand present. So that's a short explanation, or maybe that was a long explanation of what thought diffusion is. I'm going to give you some specific thought diffusion techniques. These two are my favorite. And the first one is honestly as easy as it gets. Like you literally can walk out of here and start doing this. The phrase, I notice. Okay. Again, we often get fused with our thoughts, get fused with our stress and emotions. And that's all we can think and see and feel. And it feels like that's who we are. By using the phrase, I notice, we're again creating some distance. So we're going to say, I notice that thought. I notice that feeling is there. I notice that thing is bothering me, or, oh, I notice that pain in my stomach. So instead of getting stuck on, let's say you had a stressful encounter at work today, maybe something happened with a boss and you just cannot stop thinking about it, right? I bet your mind is going over that scenario again and again. And now you're going to be like, okay, I'm noticing there's that story again. I'm noticing there's those thoughts. Oh, I'm noticing that anxiety that is popping up. All right. Again, small, tiny, just change in how we word it, how we kind of almost talk to ourselves. But it's this way of not having that thought and that stress be all who we are. And instead, it's like, it's there. That's not all I am. That's not all I think. That's not all I feel, but it is there. But I can continue, let's say, working on this project, even with that thought there. So I notice is a very simple one, just saying, I notice, and whatever is happening around you. The other one that I really enjoy is called naming the story. So again, let's think about something that might be really bothering you right now, something that you have just been replaying in your head so many times. I want you to imagine that this thought or the story is a book. Okay, picture that book in front of you. I want you to give that book a title. All right, I will call mine The Work Stress. Okay, my book is The Work Stress. Okay, so what we're going to do is every time Amanda starts getting those thoughts about this work stress popping up again, or, I'm getting consumed by it or playing it over and over and over again, I'm going to acknowledge like, oh, there's that book again, or there's that story. Oh, the work stress book. I've read that a million times. I know exactly how that book ends. Like, I don't need to read it again. I can have that book there. And I once had a client that used the metaphor of like then placing the book on the shelf. Like, imagine taking that book, putting it on the shelf. And I love that idea. Since we're talking about a book, let's put it on the bookshelf. So I named my story, The Work Stress. I'm imagining this book, but I'm saying, hey, I don't have to read this book all day. I know this book. I've learned all the words and how it ends. Instead, I'm going to take this book and set it on the shelf. I can still see it. I still know it's there. I know still going to try to like remind me of the story, but I'm going to say, oh, I noticed that book is there. So you see how I also tied in that I noticed part of it. Like, I noticed that story. I noticed that book is there trying to pop up again. So thought diffusion to me is a skill everybody, I'm actually saying that a lot. Mindfulness is a skill everybody should learn. Thought diffusion is a skill that everybody should learn. You might not connect as much with it, but practice it. Like I said, be open-minded and try some of these out and just see what's the best fit for you. Okay, now relaxation techniques. I include this because that's probably what people ask for the most. They ask for relaxation techniques. They're looking for ways to decrease that physiological arousal. When their heart's racing and their blood pressure is up, they're shaking, they're sweating, they're asking for relaxation techniques. And I feel like these are probably the techniques most people know about. And so I want to include them because they do have some benefits. So the two probably most popular ones, diaphragmatic breathing and progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR for short. We're going to go through some examples of how to do this. Again, these are intended more often to be used like when you're just experiencing maybe some panic, a lot of stress, you feel your body is almost hyper aroused. Now, on a side note, like we also don't want to use any of these compulsively, meaning like just constantly all day, every day in an attempt not to feel. Because part of our goal in life is to learn how to have feelings, emotional feelings, physical feelings, and be okay with them. So just know, like, we don't want you to have to do this 24/7 in an attempt to never feel. But there are situations where it's like, you know what, sometimes I just need to get my heart rate down so that I can finish this task at work, right? So let's go through these examples. Diaphragmatic breathing. Once again, get comfortable, get in your chair. And for practice sake, so you can learn how to do this correctly, doesn't mean you will always do it like this. I want you to place one hand on your chest and place that other hand on your belly. Okay, again, I can't see you guys out there, but I'm going to assume you have both hands on you, one on your chest, one on your belly. While you're holding it there, I want to explain. A lot of times, most of the time when we're all taking breaths, you'll notice that your chest moves out and in. So just go ahead and take a dip, big breath. Well, if you can see me, I don't know if my little picture's on your screen at all. If you can see me, great. You'll notice my chest moves, my whole upper body moves. That's just naturally how we breathe as our lungs inflate and then deflate, right? Now, unfortunately, if you were to do this, let's say you're already stressed, your body's already kind of getting jacked up and you're like, and you're doing that, you can imagine that that's actually going to worsen some of those physical sensations. I mean, even just doing that like 4 breaths made my head a little bit dizzy, increased my heart rate. I'm sure if I took my blood pressure, it's up just a little bit, because if we try to do that kind of breathing where our chest is expanding, it's actually going to worsen those physical symptoms you're wanting to decrease. This is very important to know because most people will just say, just take a deep breath, just breathe. And if you're not doing it correctly, it's not going to do anything. If anything, it'll do more harm. So now we're going to teach you how to do it correctly so that will actually decrease some of those sensations. So you got the hand on your chest, the hand on your belly. We're going to take a breath in through our nose, and your goal, and you're not going to master this right away. Your goal is, can I keep the hand on my chest as still as possible? if possible, it's not even going to move. Our goal, and I know you can't see my belly, and I won't stand up because that's kind of weird. The hand on my belly, imagine that's what's going out and in. I almost imagine it like it's a balloon. And when I'm breathing in through my nose, the belly, the balloon is expanding. And when I breathe out through my mouth, the belly or the balloon is deflating. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it again. Hand on your chest, hand on your belly. We're going to take a breath together. Maybe some of you are already practicing and getting frustrated. You're going to try to keep the chest hand as still as possible. Ready? Okay, so for those at home, again, if you can see my little picture on here, I don't know if you can, you'll notice my chest never even moved. Let me do it again and you'll see. I'll go again. My chest is not even moving. My belly, on the other hand, if you can see it, is going out and in. This is diaphragmatic breathing. Okay, our diaphragm down there is what we are trying to expand, which is going to give us those benefits. If you're sitting, this might be a little more difficult, and that's because the diaphragm's down there and it's like kind of scrunched in half. If you really are wanting to learn how to do this, I recommend trying it laying down at first. Okay, lay down, practice it that way. Okay. Also, and I use this technique a lot for kids, but by all means, even if you're an adult, try it out. Put a toy or something on your chest. Again, for kids, I say put a toy on your chest. For an adult, I say put something on your chest. Okay, here's lotion. And I say, okay, lay down and try to keep the lotion as still as possible. Or you can do the opposite and say, okay, put that toy or that object on your belly. See how high can you make it go and how low can you get it, so that you're really practicing this idea of the diaphragm expanding and not your chest or lungs. Okay, so you're going to be practicing this. It's going to take a while, just like any other skill that you have to learn to practice. This is another one that the more you do it, the more it'll just be second nature. When you're starting to get overwhelmed, or you can notice starting to shake, sweat, your heart is racing, you can sit down and do the diaphragmatic breathing. You won't always have to put the hands there either. Eventually, you're going to master this and you can have your hands down your side and you'll be doing it. And it's very inconspicuous. Nobody will even know what's happening, whether you're doing it in the classroom or in your office or in public, in a waiting room in the hospital. Like, nobody will know what's happening. I used to, just a little information about me, I used to have such anxiety and phobia of doctors, hospitals, appointments, definitely blood work, hated needles. And so when I would get into the appointment, they would take my blood pressure, which I consider myself pretty healthy, but my blood pressure would be like off the charts. And they're like, what's happening? And I would say, it's my anxiety. So I was like, okay, Amanda, I know these skills. Why am I not practicing them? So for several appointments, I would sit in the lobby and I would do my diaphragmatic breathing. Again, I didn't need the hands anymore. I knew how to do it. And I would purposely practice that for like the 10 minutes. I'm sitting in the lobby until they call my name. Have not had an issue with the blood pressure, the anxiety since that point. Doesn't mean there's not still some anxiety present, but it's at least not impacting me physically. So try this, practice it a lot, learn to master it. One of my recommendations is don't wait until the next time you're anxious to try it. We'll fail. It's just like if any of you play sports or do any kind of activities, it would be like asking a basketball player to wait and try to shoot their very first hoop ever in the whole world at their first basketball game. That would be insane. We would say, no, we want you to practice shooting hoops every day. Every day, go to practice, get better and better at it. And eventually, once that big game is there, like, you'll feel more confident. It may not go perfect, but you'll feel more confident. I want you to do the same thing. Think of the same manner for these relaxation techniques. Don't wait until the next time you're anxious to like bust out your notes and be like, oh my gosh, Amanda said I need to do the hands. You're going to get flustered and it won't go well. So if this feels right for you, go ahead and try it while you're going to bed tonight. I like to do this in bedtime too, just to get myself in a good place. The other one, PMR, progressive muscle relaxation, really helps if any of you here have a lot of muscle tension due to stress and anxiety. All right. Maybe it's causing you aches, pains. I hear a lot of people having it in their shoulders, their necks, maybe their back. Well, what happens when we're anxious, we naturally tense our bodies, may not even realize it. So PMR, we're going to purposely I know this sounds insane. We're going to purposely tense our muscles. We're going to notice it, feel it, and then we're going to let that go. And that is a way to help relieve that tension, which is in our control. So let's do a few. I won't do PMR for the entire body, because you can literally go through every single muscle and do PMR, going through the jaw and the neck and the shoulders and the arms. We'll just do a few really quick, kind of watching the time for us. So let's do our hands. Take your hands, and I want you for a few seconds, I'll tell you when to stop, just squeeze them. Squeeze them as tight as you can. I like to picture that you're holding onto a lemon, you're trying to squeeze all the juice out of it. All right, it might be starting to get a little red or a little shaky. Now drop the lemon. I want you to just notice what feeling you had when you dropped that lemon or when you relax the hands. Like mine tends to be almost, I can't even describe it in words, like this whoosh, like this tingling that's coming out of my fingers and my wrists, right? That is you letting go of that tension, but we have to purposely tense it so you can feel that and then make the choice to let that go. Let's try, let's do our shoulders, just because a lot of people hold tension there. So one way that we can purposely tense our shoulders, I want you to try to lift them up as high as you can, almost try to touch your ears, okay? And go. And don't stop. Don't just like get to a position and stop. I know I look insane right now. Push them as high as you can. Keep going. Notice the tightness. Notice any shaking. Now drop them. And just see how that feels. So what you noticed. Again, I tend to notice that warmth kind of just fades away. That tingling stops. And then it's just very still. And again, it's almost like this sensation. I think about like just this, like going down my body, right? So you can do this for specific muscle groups. Again, so if you hold a lot of tension in your shoulders, neck, your bottom, you can do it just for those areas. You can do an entire body PMR. So let's do that really quick. Take your whole body and just squeeze everything all at once. Go ahead. So it's like I'm squeezing my booty, I'm squeezing my hands, my arms. It's hard to talk normal doing this. I'm squeezing my tummy and let it go. And notice what that was like. So you can do an entire body PMR or pick specific body parts to do that with. If you're wondering like, oh, how do I squeeze this body part? Or how do I do PMR on my neck? Now you can Google and probably find examples for everything, or you can reach out to me or the TLC Foundation. Like the neck, I would have you like tense your jaw and make it as stiff as possible. If it's your face, if you want to do PMR on your face, scrunch your face as much as you can. I'm sure this looks great. If it's your calves, I want you to push them down against the floor as hard as you can, right? If it's your abs, your stomach, I almost want you to suck in, try to think about getting that belly button to touch your chair and hold that. So those are just a few examples if you want to do different muscle groups. But if this is of interest to you, if you get a lot of tension and then fatigue due to that tension or aches and pains, look that up online and you can see a ton of examples. Let's move on. All right, we can't talk about stress management without talking about self-care. So obviously we should all be engaging in some type of self-care for our mental health, emotional health, our physical health as well. But this is what, when you are having, let's say, just that stressful day, if you have a good self-care routine, it might not impact you as much, or you'll be able to manage it much better if you weren't engaging in self-care. So I actually think I'm going to talk about some specific self-care ideas a little bit later in the slide, so I won't get into it too much. But what I do want to say is that self-care is not just go getting a manicure and a massage. Now, by all means, if you have the finances and the resources, shoot, I would do that every day. That would be amazing. But I have to be realistic. My finances don't allow that. My schedule doesn't allow that. I mean, for some people, that might not even be relaxing for them. That might make it worse. Self-care could be something as simple as like, I'm going to put my phone away for 10 minutes and just watch my kids play, right? It could be like, you know what, I'm going to go get a glass of water, right? It could be, hey, I have 5 minutes between till my next meeting. I'm going to just go outside, whether I'm going for a walk or I'm just going to stand outside and maybe doing a grounding exercise and just notice the air. I don't know if it's hot or cold where you're at right now, but maybe you can't go outside. So just know that self-care is anything where it's like, I'm taking care of myself, mind, body, spirit, everything, putting myself first for a moment. It's putting that phone away. It's, not checking that email for a moment and taking care of myself first. So we'll go through some specific ideas a little bit later as we talk about stress ideas for loved ones. Okay. We are going to practice a self-compassion exercise. Self-compassion is a needed skill for everybody. I'm not sure if you are the same, but most people tend to be really hard on themselves. We tend to be very compassionate towards others, super kind and understanding and giving. But then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, what, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? So obviously, I don't have this in the slides, but one self-compassion skill is like, talk to yourself like you would a loved one, right? What would you say to somebody else going through that same situation? And I want you to pull that inward and practice saying that to yourself. So that is a really common self-compassion technique. Here's one. I know this might seem a little different for some of you, but I would love for you to all try it just to see if it works for you. We're going to use healing hands. What I mean by this is that your hands, you may not even know, are extremely compassionate, are extremely healing towards others. These hands, maybe they've hugged somebody in an embrace and made them feel better. These hands, maybe they felt your child's forehead when they were sick. These hands, maybe you held somebody's hand as they were grieving. These hands, maybe you put your hand on somebody's back or shoulder when they're having a tough day and you kind of patted them. Maybe these hands kind of just were placed on somebody's leg when they were going through a tough time. So you don't even realize you have the most compassion. You have this compassion in your body, and this is what we call healing hands, and you didn't even realize. So instead, what we're going to do is take these healing hands of yours. They already have this skill. You already have this ability. And instead, I want you to take these hands and put it somewhere on yourself that it is needed. So I'm going to imagine a lot of times you'll notice I put them on my heart, right? If I'm having a tough day or if I'm beating myself up, maybe I need to put those healing hands on my heart, myself, and just take that compassion I have for everybody else and give it to myself for a second. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I just need to hold my face. I need to take those healing hands. For some people that maybe love it when their friend or their significant other or parent comes and just kind of holds their face. If that feels good for you, take your healing hands and do that. Maybe it's taking those healing hands and holding your own hand. I have this joke, my child always, when I ask her to hold my hand, like across the street, she says, I'll hold my own hand. And she just holds her own hand as she walks across the street. So I always think of her when I think about like, take these compassionate healing hands, and maybe you just need to hold your own hand and just feel that. Maybe it's taking these healing hands and just giving yourself a little squeeze or embrace. Okay, so I'm going to imagine that all of you out there have taken these healing hands and just placed them somewhere that you really need it right now after a difficult day or difficult time, and just notice that. So if that connects with you, try that when maybe you're a little burnt out or being just a little too hard on yourself, or being human and having human emotions and situations. Just take a moment to give yourself that compassion. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to also talk about stress management for our loved ones. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of individuals here with BFRBs, but there also might be family members and significant others and friends of those with BFRBs, and are like, hey, I experience my own stress too, just in general, but also related to my loved one. What can I do? So first, I just want to talk about caregiver fatigue. This is that exhaustion or burnout we experience as being a caregiver, providing care for somebody else, whether it's with a BFRB or whether it's being a caregiver for somebody with cancer, or being a caregiver of somebody that's even just grieving. So this fatigue, it could be physical fatigue. It's really taking it out of you physically. It could be a mental or emotional fatigue. I want you to acknowledge that this is happening. Right? Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to deny it's there. Validate your own emotions and say, okay, I am experiencing this. Maybe use the I notice technique, the thought diffusion. I notice I am worn out. I notice I am exhausted taking care of my kiddos. I noticed that there is just a lot of tiredness from just always being on the go. That acknowledgement and that validation, again, is also self-compassion, is very big, right? If your caregiver fatigue is about BFRBs, seek education. And I know I have a slide about this, but all the education and resources the TLC Foundation has on their website, talk about that soon. Seek education if that helps you with your fatigue. Sometimes the more knowledge is helpful. For some others, that might wear them out more and they're tired of looking stuff up, and that is okay. Also, it's just set realistic goals for yourself and for your loved ones. And then just take breaks. That self-care that I talked about is going to be very important. It might be the next slide. Your support system. This is going to be huge for everyone, but especially for caregivers. Who are your people? We often identify who our people are for the client, the kiddo, the person with the BFRB, but the caregivers, our loved ones, need support too. The obvious place for support are support groups, right? You can also find a lot of support. I love the social media community. If any of you know me, I spend a lot of time on social media, but it's been amazing to see the Facebook groups that are out there for BFRBs and for loved ones, the Instagram community that's about BFRBs, and the people that chat in the comments and have gotten to really know each other and found their people. There's even starting to become a TikTok BFRB community. So find people online if that's one of your go-tos. That's great. Obviously, family and friends is an obvious one. Find those people that kind of fill your bucket and help you feel good. And then if you need, no shame in finding a professional. The individual with BFRB does not have to be the only one in treatment. Anybody can go to receive some support or some of these types of skills. So I'm going to actually talk about self-care first, and then I'll come back to value behaviors because there's just a little task or activity I want to do with that. Self-care, as I mentioned, hopefully everybody's incorporating into their routine. And as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going out and getting a pedicure today for my self-care. It can be, hey, I'm going to go to bed an hour early. Even though it probably sounds ridiculous that I'm going to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock, that's what I need today. Or maybe it's, I need to get my body moving. I personally hate the word exercise. I don't do exercise, but I love movement. I want to get my body moving. So maybe it's just I'm just going to kind of walk around the house right now. Or I'm going to take a walk around outside my house and just see what I see. So it could look like a lot of different things. Back to valued behaviors. So sometimes we set our own goals and priorities and things that are important to us, to the back burner. And so I want you to take a moment and figure out, what are your values? Okay. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe it's physical health. Take a second, think about what's one of my values? What's really important to me? At the end of my lifetime, I can say, people will say you know what? Amanda really valued her job. She really valued her kiddos, really valued, advocacy work. Take that value, but now let's break it down and think of one concrete task, one concrete goal or step that you can take to meet that value. So I'll make up a random example. If my value is my children, which it is, one goal might be, okay, I want to spend more time playing with them. Okay, now we're going to break that down into a specific, very small action step, right? So that action step might be, after this webinar, I'm going to go just cuddle with them on the couch for 10 minutes before it's their bedtime, right? Something so small, because a lot of times we just see those overall goals or overall values oh, I need to be a better parent, right? And that's how we phrase it. I need to work out more. But instead, if we almost give ourselves some grace and saying, yeah, physical health is a value of mine. I would love to, one of my goals is to exercise once a day. Well, maybe my action step is just to, after this, go and do 20 crunches. Seems much more doable and much more self-compassionate instead of saying, oh my gosh, Amanda, you haven't worked out in months. Okay. So I know you already started to explore some values, but here's one other way to go about it. I want you to all imagine you're 80 years or older. Maybe some of you listening are. So this will be easier for you then. Imagine you're 80 years old and you're looking back on your life, and take a moment to think about, what things do you wish you would have spent more time on? Are there things you wish you would have spent less time on? Things that consumed you too much that you're like, wow, that wasn't as important as I thought. Are there things that you wish people would remember you by? I know this might seem kind of morbid, but one of my favorite ways to go about this activity is thinking about, like, in my eulogy or obituary, what do I want people to say about me, right? I want people to say, like, Amanda, she was a great wife, loved her kiddo, she worked hard, she cared about others, right? That's what's important to me. Being, let's say, a great cook. I don't care if I'm an awful cook, by the way, not a value of mine. I'm okay if I'm 80 someday and nobody says, wow, she was a great cook or she was an awful cook. Not important to me. But for somebody else, cooking and that interest and maybe that nutrition, like that health, is so important to them. They want that. Someday when they're looking back, they want to be remembered by that. And that's awesome. We're all going to have different values. There's no right or wrong ones. Take a moment to think about, like, okay, if I look back someday, what are people going to say about me? Or what am I going to wish I did more of? And then we're going to start incorporating that into our daily lifestyle with those small action steps. Okay, our last kind of section, or a big section, is about finding therapists, finding treatment and a therapist, especially a BFRB specialist, because this can be a stressor in itself. This can be exhausting. The number of people that have told me they have had a hard time finding a therapist. So what can we do while we are waiting? Well, obviously, all these stress management techniques we've talked about today, you can do, but some other more concrete things. Start finding that support system. The number of people that have almost been part of my BFRB community online, they are doing that. They're educating themselves, they're connecting with people, making friends, getting support until they can get in with that provider. And that's a necessary step. As I mentioned, TLC Foundation for BFRBs, their health education programs could be like here, coming onto these webinars. I hope in the future you sign up for as many as you can. That can be your support system, right? I always say too, if you're waiting for that specialist, for that BFRB specialist, maybe you're on a wait list or they don't have anything for a few months or just can't find somebody, you can go ahead and get into treatment for maybe some other of your general concerns. It might not be specifically for your BFRB, but maybe you want to go ahead and see somebody for stress, because that's going to benefit you with your BFRB treatment eventually. Maybe you're also struggling with some depression and sadness. Go ahead and start that treatment now until you can work on some of those other specific behaviors. Okay. I love reading. Start looking up books, whether it's to help you just feel validated and like you're not alone, or whether it's a book to help you with some techniques so you can get started right away. These are just a few of them that I have used or recommended, but I know there's a lot more, and I'm sure there's a lot of ideas on the BFRB Foundation's website. What can you also do while waiting for treatment? I encourage all my clients, the second we start treatment together, but also if they're waiting for treatment, start monitoring your behaviors, writing down as much information as you humanly possibly can. Like, no information is too much, right? Start writing down things like, okay, when do I, let's say, pick my skin? Where am I at? Okay, I do it a lot in the car. Where, what am I feeling when I pull my hair? Okay, anxiety or sadness. Are there any sensations like, oh yeah, there tends to be like this tingling on my scalp right before I pull? Or, what do I do with the hair? Or, after I pick a scab, what do I do with it after? Oh, I might like rub it on my lips. Any information you can tell us about the BFRB is going to be super helpful and needed in treatment. Okay, so it might seem like you're gathering too much information, but no way to do that. And then last, here is that slide I was explaining about the TLC Foundation and all the resources, all the amazing things they have on their website. If you haven't already, and I'm guessing most of you have checked it out, if you're here, look there, look at everything they have available. And you can get started on this before you see your specialist. You can get started in support groups and reading articles and looking at different tools. So if you haven't already bookmarked that site. And then my favorite part, if anybody knows me, I love myself a fidget. Whether you have a BFRB or not, very handy. My fidget of choice right now, it's not even on the screen, but I use these magnetic balls that like you can just do a lot of fun things, and I will sit there and just twirl them and make shapes out of them, and I can do that all day long. Start finding the fidgets that you gravitate towards, that you just absolutely love. These are some of my favorite on here. Everything from those stretchy strings or the spaghetti string one down in the other corner, cush balls. Everyone knows poppets now. I feel like I had poppets before they were even a fad, just because I love them, especially for skin picking, because I feel like it's like popping pimples, kind of like never ending bubble wrap. There are, some of you have probably heard of the Calm strips. I know they've been on Shark Tank. The pick and peel stones, this is great to pick at. There's different putties, different rollers if you're trying to reach some of those sensations. I think the TLC Foundation might be putting in the chat some of the links, or you can contact me or them for them. Start almost creating your little toolbox of interventions, things that you love. I always say, like, you want something that you naturally just grab every time. Every time I literally sit at this desk here, I grab these little magnetic balls and just sit and play with them. That means it's a good fit for me. If I want to play with them the whole hour, then it's a great fit. So that's one thing to start doing. Last, our crisis resources. I just want to make sure everybody knows, everybody has 911, obviously your local emergency room. Also have on hand, know if you have a community mental health hospital near you. This is specifically for behavioral or mental health. A lot of major cities have CMHCs. If you're not in a major city, find the closest one and just know your local CMHC so that you have, that phone number to their crisis services if needed. And then obviously the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, have that on hand, because again, everybody needs these resources sometimes, but especially if you're struggling with the BFRB, any kind of mental health concern, like, it's helpful to have that. And last, I always want to give my contact information. Again, feel free, if you need anything, have any questions on this webinar, reach out to me. But there's also my website. I have a lot of information about BFRBs on my website, and then my social media, where I do a lot of education and advocacy. So with that, I'll see if Jen is here still.
Hello. Thank you, Amanda. That was awesome. I personally am feeling so much more regulated and not so much stress. My shoulders have gone from here to here, which is awesome.
Love it.
Others have too.
Yeah.
Thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for your dedication to our BFRB community. We are so grateful for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
You bet. If you have any other questions about today's program, please feel free to email them into us at info@bfrb.org. I'd like to give a special shout out to the TLC staff for putting this event together today. Thank you, team, for all of you joining us today for this important health education presentation. Thank you. And don't forget to help us by completing the post-event survey, which is now linked in the chat and will also be in the post-attendee email you will receive shortly. And if you enjoyed today's program, we hope that you'll consider making a donation to TLC in support of our outreach and education programming so that we can continue to create and facilitate events like this. You can make a donation at bfrb.org/donate. We hope to see you at our upcoming April outreach and education programs on Monday, April 18th. You won't want to miss our third installment of TLC BFRB Brave Books. And on Friday, April 29th, we will be hanging out and unwinding with a TLC Hangout. The link to TLC's event page is now posted in the chat box. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we wish you a very happy evening. See you again soon.